Let's go. Let's get this going. Hey guys, welcome to the Red to Black podcast hosted by Warner and Mario. And today we have a phenomenal discussion for you. We're talking about the decay and moral destruction of society in Los Angeles, all over the world. We're also talking about supply chain issues and then civil unrest in Solomon Islands. It's all pointing to one thing, and that's lack of integrity in our laws. Actually, two things: lack of integrity in our laws and no jobs. It's creating this huge situation. So, Mario, what are your thoughts on? Let's discuss the breakdown in Los Angeles. And recently, I was reading an article on follow home robberies. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so there's been a drastic increase based on a Zero Hedge article we read in the amount of robberies. Like basically, people are following wealthy people back from restaurants, shops, back to their house and robbing them for their jewelry, petty cash in their house, cars, etc. I met a young man, or I ran into a young man I know today who just got off a 6-day or 7-day detail of a diplomat up in Los Angeles. He's been out of the Marine Corps on terminal leave for about 90 days, and he got a job working private security up in LA. And the person that hired him was a 7-day job. He sat in a garage for 7 days from 6 p.m. till 6 a.m. But this is not a famous family. This isn't a family that anybody would know. They're just they're serving our country as diplomats, and it's too dangerous for them to come home. So I guess apparently the State Department doesn't provide them the requisite security. Only when they're on mission overseas or in DC, they don't get a detail when they're back at their vacation home or their residence. So he just explained to me this family can't go anywhere in LA without a bunch of special forces, Marines, Army Ranger guys, following them around everywhere they go. So he sat in a garage for 7 days and made $5,000 to make sure nothing nefarious happened to this family. So it just speaks volumes about the security threat in LA when you can't even go to your house without, a level of security if you're wealthy.
So a few months ago, what's really interesting is we were talking about this. I don't know if we mentioned all the crime that was start happening and possible kidnappings, but that's what's coming next. And that sounds insane, but these are criminals. That's what they do. They find, just like in the real world, when you find a great profit margin, like we love to talk about, criminals are going to find the best profit margins, and they're not idiots. A lot of these criminals are resourceful. So we started off talking about Los Angeles when I used to live there and used to have a real estate asset, how after the sickness, things started going downhill. After the cops started backing off, they didn't enforce homelessness on the street, and you started seeing these bum encampments popped up. Then you started seeing more as these shops and stores were cut down and people started getting kicked out of their apartments, right? So you saw like the homelessness was the first thing we saw coming in. Then we saw sort of small petty crime. And now we're in this situation where, like in San Francisco and other areas of the country, I mean, dudes literally 80 deep are showing up on cars, literally parking with license plates. They look like nice cars. I saw pictures on images or videos on Twitter of this. Nice cars parking alongside in the fire zone of like a Nordstrom's and going in, bum rushing it and stealing stuff, literally running out, throwing the stuff in the back of their car, then getting in the front seat and driving off. You're like, what is going on? What's going on is there's a massive vacuum in our laws. Cops don't want to work anymore because of these medical mandates. And what's happening is the destruction of society through destruction of small businesses, destruction of emergency services, and basically like policing services is causing this vacuum, and the criminals are coming in to that vacuum, and they're hitting places like, there's an article out of Zero Hedge, which I'm reading right now, which is like Jeremy Piven, famous actor, someone hit his house for $20,000 in LA, just stole clothes. So a trend here is they're stealing high-end clothes and they're stealing high-end jewelry, bags, that type of stuff that they know they can go and sell on the open market. Another, Rihanna's house, some dude jumped the wall. So you think I have a wall, I have a security. They caught him or her, jumped the wall, attempted to go into the Rihanna, like a famous singer, into her house and try and steal a bunch of her stuff. Another guy was followed home at 3 a.m. in the morning. I don't know what he's doing out that early. An old producer, he got robbed. And then a Real Housewives of Beverly Hills on October 27th, she was followed to her Encino home by two men wearing masks. A home video showed the men smashing sliding glass doors to gain entry before taking as much as $1 million in valuables. So guys, lessons learned here: start learning how to secure your house, but most importantly, be very careful where you invest. Start thinking about investing in like tech businesses or businesses that aren't affected by this. They have a server in the middle of nowhere that no one's going to hit. Start thinking about like where you're investing, where you're starting businesses. Don't be stupid about this. Don't think we're fear mongering you. We're literally reporting on the ground facts that are happening. And if you go into this willy nilly, naively, like as two Marines will tell you, don't take this lightly. Start thinking about where you're going to place your money, your security plans, your plan B, and whatnot. Mario, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's only a matter of time until criminals figure out the most lucrative thing you can do is start kidnapping. And I think it happened to a celebrity a few months ago up in LA. Their dogs got kidnapped and they paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to get their dogs back. It was a famous lady. It's a singer. I'm drawing a blank on her name. She had her dog stolen, kidnapped, and she got them back for, I want to say $350,000, something obscene to get a couple of dogs back. But that's the next level. So as they do things, they get educated, they do another robbery, they get educated, they do another one, and they start spreading. There's like basically a university that's happening, an education that's happening. It's only a matter of time until they figure out the most lucrative thing you do is steal one of their kids, one of these celebrities' kids. And that gets, then this whole thing, the whole system just gets absolutely chaotic when you're human kidnapping is happening inside of America, regularly. It gets very, very disturbing.
And why are we reporting this? Why are we talking about this? You're thinking, oh, you guys are fear mongering. Like this guy, Jeremiah Babe, is just, the guy's a fear mongering machine, but he reports actually what's going on the ground. So you take the advice, you take the intel as you may. Here's why we're reporting it to you. Because as we discussed in our prior podcast, we talked about if you're in a business, right, that gets shut down by the pandemic or the sickness, whatever you call it, and you're losing revenue, we talked about pivoting. We also talk about not setting up your business in certain environments that are not conducive, that are not holding down order. Like you go to Wyoming, you go to Texas, they're holding the line. They're not putting up with this crap. You go to certain areas in California, like Orange County, Malibu, Malibu maybe a little bit, like half and half. But you go to Orange County, you go to other areas like Santa Barbara, you see bums rolling around, but they're not allowing them to sleep on the streets. And I've seen areas where they're clearing bums out. So what you want to think about is you want to do that, what we talked about in a prior podcast, you want to do that assessment of how many of your wealth or your assets are in one of these areas like Beverly Hills, Los Angeles, New York, that are compromised because of the degrading situation. If you have 80 to 90%, you need to sit down. I mean, not kidding. Right now, I hate using that word but it's of the essence to sit down and start pivoting as fast as possible. Because as Mario said, you're going to have this situation where it happens with everything. When you start putting on a lot of debt, it goes like this, and then it goes hyperbolic, and then it dives fast. We're in the situation of crime where it was like homelessness coming in. And we're not bull crapping you. We saw it with our own eyes. We're in and out of LA. I'm going in every week. Mario's coming through it. We're in California giving you on the ground intel. And what's happening is it's going to start like this, then these smash and grabs. And what's going to happen is other people on YouTube are going to see this and go, well, I can smash and grab. And it's going to start, because of the internet, it's going to start going parabolic. And there's going to be intel people. I mean, it's the perfect intel channels. You're on Twitter, you're on these Telegram apps, you're on whatever. You can get in. Hey, buddy, yeah, it's open right now. Go hit it. And you can have guys literally roaming around in cars and on text, and boom, they hit it and they're gone. It's so hard. So my point is if you're in one of these environments, you should have been doing your plan B like a year or two ago when we were talking about it. But you need to start thinking, getting yourself your stuff in order, getting your assets out, looking for a plan B asset like ASAP today. Mario, thoughts?
I've seen it with my own eyes now. So I thank you, Warner, for having me over for Thanksgiving. Wonderful Thanksgiving with you and your family. And it just a blessing to have you close enough to go and experience that with you. Just for the listeners, I took an Amtrak train up to see Warner for a day or day and a half. And on the way back, the train I was going to get on struck a car or a person who was, offline. So I ended up taking a bus from Ventura, California to LA Union Station, so I could get on another. That's a big hub where I could get on another train and head back down to San Diego County. And that bus ride was just an eye opener of what is going to occur. I mean, it's an environment. I mean, I was like stalked on a bus by a crazy lady that was asking me for a job interview, and I was explaining to her, we're not doing job interviews right now, thanks. And it's really sad. I mean, was it drugs? Was it, homelessness? I'm not sure. Craziness? I'm not sure. Off your meds? I'm not sure. But just that environment where you can't. I mean, it's an environment where you don't want to even go into LA anymore, or you don't want to go to certain parts of LA. I don't want to even go through that city anymore. In certain assets, you want to like fly around it. You want to go over it, around it. You don't want to go through it. So it's hurting. It's going to hurt that city. I think long term the weather is so perfect that it bounces back long term, but we're going to go through a real cycle here. And there's got to be a few of my autistic nephews out there that'll do this for me. But if you look at the labor force participation rate and how it's declined, and you overgraph crime rates, it's 100% correlated. There's a perfect correlation. The less men that are working, you got able-bodied men not working, crime's going up.
Yeah. So, and you look at the statistics, I think it's jumped 50%, like homicides in certain areas. I forget. I was looking at that the other day. I don't know if it's it may have been Los Angeles, but homicides are like, one area it was like at 1,200 by October. It was a huge, 1,200, that's a good amount. So homicides are jumping. To your point, what you're saying about the train, let's think about this for a second. Normal ride, 4 hours, which is pretty, if you're doing
it's faster to go the train than to drive from from northern San Diego County to Ventura. It was faster to take the train to drive. However, when the train strikes someone or strikes a vehicle, that throws off the timelines. It took me 12 hours to get back.
Here's the thing to think about. There's a guy named Cliff High who was talking about up in Washington State, the ferries are down by 30% capacity. And he was telling me, you're from that area. He said, yep. The ferries up there, I don't know much. He said they're basically like thoroughfares.
You can't get to the San Juan Islands unless you have a private. I guess there's one or two aviation companies that'll fly you into San Juan Islands. Most of the people that are going to the San Juan Islands, Woodby Island, there's a bunch of little islands in the Puget Sound that require, if you want to travel out there on a reasonable budget, it requires you to jump on a state-run ferry for, I don't know, $100, $50.
But they're the equivalent of an interstate, because if you don't
Correct.
have an interstate, you have islands and water, and you have ferries, that's your interstate. And what he's saying,
Correct.
They're down 30%. So let's think about Amtrak for a second and what it's foreshadowing, and what we're going to talk about next, which is supply chain shortages. If it takes you normally 4 hours, which is a good deal because you're going to drive 4 or 6, depending on the traffic. Now you have basically a mechanical breakdown. So that's one kink in the chain. What happened there? Did they not have enough parts? Did a mechanic not show up? Right. So then you missed that number one train. Number two train hit someone. Why was he on the tracks? Was it just a bum that was out of his mind? So see what happens is as society starts breaking down, transportation starts breaking down. And Marty, I've talked about this. We're upping our fuel capacity. That's all we'll say on our rigs, our driving rigs, because if Amtrak's starting to break down, then what happens when gas stations break down? What happens when everything else breaks down? See, the chain starts breaking, and that's why we're pushing, going to talk about supply chains. And why am I mentioning all this? Because when you have wealth in a just-in-time inventory system, everything's moving on point when the whole chain's on point. But when the chain starts breaking apart, any business that's along that chain, I've talked to a lot of small business owners, starts breaking because you don't have the individual in that cog to get the good from point A to B, or the conveyor belt breaks down, or the machine breaks down. It all starts breaking because it's all tied on top of each other. Same thing with the supply chains and the ports. There's an article which talks about how the ports are just completely inefficient, like one way in, one way out. And they just can't, they're missing scheduling. They're not doing the scheduling correctly. Guys are jammed up. Like usually would take maybe, from what I read last time, a few hours to get in. Now it's taking days. And some of these truckers, if you're on a union, I read about this, if you're on a union trucker, you're getting paid hourly. But if you're a mom and pop, you're only getting paid per the load. So if you go from like half a day, let's say, to wait for a load, okay, you get paid half a day and then you come back, you do 3 loads, let's say 3 days, but now you wait 3 days. Well, your revenue just got cut by, what is that, 66%? Because you could have been doing 3 loads. Now you're doing 1 load. Wow, that's massive. For you have insurance, you have truck payments. Maybe you're working, you own the truck, but you work for another trucking company, or maybe you're contracted out. The point is, we're seeing things breaking left and right. And why Mario and I are talking about this is because you want to start assessing where you have your wealth, because this whole country is about to come apart at the wheels. We are watching it like every day. It's getting crazier and crazier. So you want to start assessing, where is your money put? Like, okay, if it's in fiat money, you want to think about that, because that's a medium of exchange. If it's in gold, Mario doesn't really like, that's a store of value, but that could be a gap if the monetary system collapses. Is it in real estate? Is it in a car? Is it in personal assets? You want to start thinking about all this stuff, because you've spent your life and you've built this money, this value, and you put it somewhere in one of those vehicles. And now you're just going to go, oh yeah, it'll just be fine there. No, it won't. You need to start thinking about what's going on in your local economy. You need to start opening your eyes up, get the rosy colored glasses off, throw them out, and start thinking about how you're going to protect your wealth and grow your wealth in this chaotic. At this point, just protect your wealth. Mara, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, physical security is an issue now. Not only your wealth. I mean, that's like when I was taking a bus through Los Angeles, the last thing on my mind was protecting my financial resources. It was like, just survive this crazy experience. You know, I didn't plan on taking a bus. I didn't want to take a bus. I was down on my options, and well, the last thing on my mind was really my assets. It was physically get through this situation, and that's what's gonna occur when you're driving around, flying around, when you're conducting commerce. There's going to be a threat now. There's going to be a criminal element in this country, just like Mexico, where it's like the cost of doing business is rising because you have to combat a very capable threat. Young capable men out of work is the most dangerous thing in the world.
Yeah, and you guys think, maybe you're watching this podcast and you think we're crazy. Well, we told you about the homeless situation rising. We told you about the store shutting down. Mario talked ad infinitum about basically young men, like he just said, out of work. And you're seeing it right now. You're seeing it, like people bum rushing stores. You're seeing train systems break down. You're seeing ferry systems break down. You're seeing supply chains break down. I mean, if you're watching this, you're not woke up, I don't know what it's going to take, a gun in your face to wake your ass up. Because at the end of the day, and I apologize for swearing, at the end of the day, we're not, I mean, it's getting live now. We're not messing around. Now it's time, like we're getting into our Marine Corps training, where now it's time to start thinking about how you're going to protect yourself, because your body is also an asset of wealth. How you think, how you operate. And if you're operating in an environment where you're a victim, you're going to get these dudes, you're going to get smoke checked. You want to go out with your chest up. You want to go out like not looking like $1 million. You want to look a little disheveled. You want to look like you're a little crazy, where I'm like, I'll pick another guy to dick with, right? You don't want to be driving. This is where trucks we talked about come in. You don't want to be driving low to the ground where someone can get in at eye level or from down. You want to be up high, so someone's got to come up to you and you can come down to them. You want to start thinking about these things. You want to start thinking about the routes you're taking, the time of day you're driving, because you want to think about where your assets are parked. You know, you want to think about moving them to safe positions. You want to think about the businesses you're in. There's a lot going on right now where you don't want to be just drinking and watching football. It's time. Mario and I are talking about, it's time to get your A game on. And it's time to start operating. It's time to start thinking. It's time to get your what out of your what.
Well, it's also avoiding bad situations. I mean, the number one step is to not put yourself in a situation. Don't hang out in stupid places with stupid people. The reality is, did I have something on that bus to help me personally survive an altercation? I did. I don't leave home without it. That being said, I can't do anything if 30 people rush the bus. If they're operating in a cartel gang environment where they don't go alone. They come in strong, like they're robbing these stores, these Louis Vuitton stores with 30 folks. that one security guard on duty, there's nothing he can do. He doesn't even pull out what he has on him because it's a liability at that point. You don't have enough rounds. You're outgunned. Enough said. If 30 people came on that bus, we stopped in Oxnard and we stopped in Burbank. If 30 dudes, capable men, jump on that bus, I don't go into my next level of security. I just sit there as a victim and ride it out, try to ride out the storm. Here's my wallet. Here's my keys.
There's one thing you can do, and I don't know if this is legal because California is crazy. Take some ghost pepper. I'm not recommending this, but take some hot peppers, put it in a pot with some water, and put it in a spray bottle. You'll stop 30 dudes in their tracks.
Yeah, I guess you just blast the whole thing with bear spray. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to use bear because I think bear spray is illegal. The state's so insane. But at the end of the day, if your life's just say, here's the thing. Just use it as like, hey, I'm taking it. It's basically, it's a mixture for a hot sauce I'm making. And you just, I'm just bringing it with me from point A to B, and then I'm not saying
that's what it's coming to, Warner. That's what it's coming to, is that it's so chaotic. You're looking at basically everyone's got to suffer because this situation's melted down. So bring the jobs back from overseas, put people to work, stop the nonsense with the medical tyranny, and allow the economy to function, and you'll have less violence, period. See, it's simple. Pay the cops a fair wage, support them when they get in altercations, and stop the nonsense. But if LA wants to run it that way, that's fine. It'll survive. LA is a beautiful city. It's got beautiful weather. It'll survive. It's just going to be a chaotic. It's going to be a chaotic downward spiral until the thing bottoms out. It gets so bombed out, and this is the history. This is the history of the world. This is the history of cities. Why did the suburbs exist? Because they've been bombed out before. The cities are bombed out. LA at its peak is a wonderful city. What LA is experiencing right now is it's a nightmare.
Yeah, and thank God we sold all our real estate there. Yes, we're looking at some other asset there, but we're not living in Los Angeles right now. So that other asset's it's just another asset. If whatever happens. But the point is that now when I go into the city, I'm going to be thinking about how I'm going, how I'm moving, what I'm doing. Basically I'm not going to be just going in like I used to. It's like, oh, this is a cool restaurant. Oh,
grab a coffee, hang out,
grab a coffee,
sit on your, talk on your cell phone, an open communication line, and allow people to listen to what you're talking about. I didn't do that in Hawaii, and I certainly am not going to do that in Los Angeles.
And I would say if you go to Hawaii, I mean, you've been in Hawaii and you say Hawaii is bad. It's nothing close to LA, man. Hawaii, yes, Hawaii's got some dudes stealing cars and some crazy stuff. But if you took Hawaii compared to Los Angeles and see what you're seeing now, you want to be your DEFCON levels are way up in LA. And people think maybe you think we're insane talking about this, but our whole goal for you is to avoid financial destruction. And wealth can be multiple different things. It can be, it could be gold you have on you, some store of wealth. It could be a medium of exchange, which is money. I just learned that today. I didn't realize this. I tell on myself, fiat money is not a store of wealth. It's a medium of exchange. I got that wrong. A store of wealth is like gold, or a business. A great business is a store of wealth, but it's also investment. Gold's not an investment. It's just a store of wealth. Fiat money is just a medium of exchange. So knowing these different things and how to park your value wherever you park it is essential in this environment we're in, because you don't want to park all your value in Los Angeles. Right? Because what happens when Los Angeles goes south? Then all your value you have is there. And it's not in, let's say, like Montana or Idaho, or in a great business like you're in, that's all over the world. That's untouchable, right? So you want to think about where are you storing your value right now so you don't get financially destroyed. And what's going to happen is, like we talked about before, we're on this curve where it's like bum rushing, and it's going to go hyperbolic. It's going to go whoom, like you watch. It's going to go.
No, it has, Warner. It started with not enforcing homelessness on the streets. Then it was shoplifting. Now it's home invasion, and we're getting to the point where it's kidnapping. That's when it gets parabolic.
So to leave you, we have about 6 more minutes. We're going to finish up with, people are protesting in the Solomon Islands. Like they don't want anything to do with Australia. They don't even like the Australian government there. It's kind of one of those, it's kind of like maybe a agreement that was built between probably some politicians and Australians, but the Solomon people are like, hey, you're going to have these jab mandates and these medical mandates. And they're like, no, we're not. We're not doing any of that. And you're watching people push back in like the Netherlands and in other parts of Europe and Australia. Like 1 million people showed up because they're just sick and tired of these individuals that have sold themselves out probably for money and for power, or they're blackmailed and they're tired of it. So what we're seeing around the rest of the world juxtaposed to the US is we're seeing like authoritarian rule come down, and they're pushing back. In the US, we're seeing like, nah, we don't want to mess with these people, but we're going to allow it to devolve into chaos. So you're seeing kind of different variations of chaos breaking out. So what are your thoughts on what's going on in Europe?
It's just interesting that approximately half the population of the United States has no idea what's happening in Australia and in Europe as far as the protests and the tyrannical enforcement of masks, etc., because the mainstream media will not show it. They won't accurately show what's happening in Australia and Europe. Just today, a couple of folks from the Netherlands were arrested trying to leave the country to go to Spain and just ride out, lockdowns in Spain, or, Netherlands locked down. They wanted to go to Spain and they were arrested. And you're like, oh, we're in a new era where you can't leave EU country for another EU country. You're not allowed to leave. This is a new era of tyranny, that you're not allowed to freely leave a country and do business in another country. Well, that's the whole part of the EU. That's like the whole part of America, is that we can go to Texas. Warner and I we can move to Texas and do business. No license required. No government overreach. If we want to go there, Texas welcomes you to come there. I lived in Chicago, and at the time, the governor of Texas, Governor Perry, was running ads in Chicago inviting businesses to immigrate, to move, to relocate into his state of Texas, or the state of Texas. It's welcomed in America. So that's the free trade agreement, is to have EU countries not allowed to have free movement of people and commerce and business. It's pretty incredible what we're watching there, but it's not on the mainstream media. Same with Australia.
Yeah, and I would say we're gonna have three types of people watching this content right now, or if you watch in the future. There's gonna be those that are woke. They see what's going on. There's gonna be those that are coming out of their slumber and they're like, "Oh, this is interesting. I better start listening to this." And there are gonna be those that are gonna go, "Nah, you guys are full of it." Now, here's the thing with that statement. That's a trap. You are gonna get Mario and I are one. You're gonna get 100% smoke checked. Have fun with that. It takes you no effort or little to no brain cells to just go, hey, they're saying some stuff that's outside my frame of reference. I don't like it. It sounds insane, but what does it take to put that in the back of your brain in a little filing cabinet and go, hey, I'm gonna consider this. I'm not gonna throw it out. I don't agree with it, but I'm gonna put it in the back of my brain, a little filing cabinet, and I'm just gonna kind of gestate on it. I'm gonna think about it. I'm gonna look around me. I'm gonna go, hey, is what they're saying true? What am I seeing in my local area? If you're in a local little town, it's not happening. Well, then get out of that town and go start to other areas or talk to relatives that are dealing with it. The point is if you're committed to creating financial freedom, you've already created it. You can so easily get caught. It's happened to so many people. There's going to be so many people right now that are wealthy, and maybe it's me, maybe it's Mario. Well, it's probably not Mario, but maybe me. You can just get completely smoke checked, and it can happen like that in a crash. And people are like, "Oh, I never saw it coming." It's like, yeah, no, you saw it coming. You just chose not to listen to it.
and
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 yeah, go ahead.
it's especially violent when you have leveraged positions. So as much as leverage helps you on the upside, it increases your returns on the upside. It's destructive on the downside as well. So real estate's one of those blessings and curses. If you're highly leveraged in real estate assets, you're getting a massive return on invested capital. Well, when the bubble bursts, and arguably we're in the greatest bubble the world's ever seen, when that tide rolls out, leverage works just as powerful. It's just a powerful force. It's just the laws of nature. It is what it is. It works on the downfall as well. When your debt is due and you're like, man, we have equity in this position. Well, you're not making the payments. Bye bye.
Yeah. So on that point, we want to look at everything. We want to look at your debt loads. you want to start assessing cash. Do you keep it all in cash? You want to start assessing gold. Mario's not really into it. I'm more into it. But you want to assess everything. You want to assess, all you want to do is, here's a simple way to look at it. You have value and you're putting it somewhere. And look at everything that you're doing, whether it's real estate, gold, cash, a business you're investing in the public markets, wherever it is, look at the downside of each of those stores or each of those places where you put your value. Look at what are the probability of those things going to zero and do an assessment on each one. So don't get out, even Bitcoin, do an assessment. What's the chances of this thing going to zero? What's the chance of this thing getting cut by 80%? Start doing the assessment. Don't get caught in, it's just going to go up, up, up. Like, no asset is foolproof. Always be reanalyzing every asset or place where you put your value, analyze each one of them. And this is now the time to start doing that.
Yeah, last thought, Warner, is it's a wonderful time to stack cash. It's a great time to stack cash and prepare for the unwinding of deleveraging of assets that are highly leveraged.
Whew. Okay, on that note, guys, thank you everyone for watching. Please subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Like, comment, that helps us get this message out to the world. You can see it's a powerful message. And please think about any other people, if you're listening to this message and provided value for you, who else could provide value for? And then, as always, it's a pleasure speaking with you, being with you. We thank you for your time, and we look forward to connecting with you in the future.